We are back again with a new episode of Lead to Excel podcast. And I've got a special guest with us this week. This lady I met quite a while ago, virtually. We've not met in person yet, but we will soon. And she is just such an amazing, amazing, amazing lady. And you'll see what I mean when we get into this podcast today. She talks a lot about a subject that is so dear to me and that I would say is really important for every single person. We're talking about purpose. If it's something you've heard about, you've read about, something that you've been thinking about in any way, listen to this podcast because you're going to get new insights about what it means. So who am I talking about? Nadine Collins. Welcome to Lead to Excel podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Maureen.
So I'm just going to introduce you a bit, and then we're just going to dig a bit deeper into who you are. So Nadine Collins holds a PhD in education with an emphasis on administration in higher education. She holds a master's degree in education psychology and an undergraduate degree in behavioral sciences with an emphasis in psychology. She's published numerous academic and theoretical articles on marginalized groups, especially women. Dr. Nadine helps women build their speaking platforms and writes and publishes world-class books through her one-to-one and group coaching programs. She's had ongoing programs on 2 international Christian TV networks and is the author of 8 books. Incredible. Now, one of the ones we are going to be talking about is her latest book, which is titled The Pursuit of Purpose, a guide for faith-based women to break free from indoctrinations. That is powerful. Now, I think I was talking to her before we actually started the podcast on her helping me actually write my own book. So if it's something you're thinking about before we get into the podcast, you need to start, making a note so that you reach out to her because she definitely will help you. So Dr. Nadine, it's so great to have you on the podcast today.
Yes, I'm really excited to be here with you today.
So let's kind of go back a bit to your early years. I actually read in your book that your mom had you when she was 16. Mm-hmm. That is incredible. So tell us a bit about your childhood.
Yes, so my mom had me at 16. I'm the first of, as I put it in the book, 14 pushes to give life, but she had 12 of us. I think she lost one prematurely and another, I think maybe lasted a day or so. But I'm the first of 12 of us. Had me at the age of 16, very much lovey-dovey. She and my dad, I guess they were young and in love. And she said she was really excited to be pregnant because I asked her, what was it like for you to, give birth at such an early age? Like, what was the motivation for that? And she said to me, while growing up, most of the people around her were having kids and she wanted to have a kid as well. It reminds me of growing up. I mean, people had dolls. We wanted a doll. I mean, a child is a whole other thing. Exactly. But she was like, she wanted to have one, but I guess she never expected that, I guess, giving birth would have been so painful. And I came early as well. I came at 7 months. So I was a premature baby. And that was that. And I grew up with my grandmother because she and my dad, they were so young, they got married, and my dad migrated to her birth country because she was born in Barbados. My dad is from St. Lucia, but she was living in St. Lucia. Daddy migrated to Barbados. Mom was still in St. Lucia and so on. And on one of his trips, he took me from my mom and brought me to my grandmother. He told her for a weekend, but then gave me to my grandmother to raise me. So that is a little bit about my early childhood.
Oh, thank you so much for that. That is incredible. And I agree with what you said. Most people want a doll when they're young, but to actually want a baby. But no, that is so cool. Right. Now, so you said that you went to live with your grandmother. Before I come to that, where do you live now?
I live in the US right now.
So you're in
Yes.
the US now. So
Yes.
when you went to live with your grandmother, where was this?
That's in St. Lucia, where I grew up.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's where you grew up. Okay, can you tell us a bit about how it was growing up with your grandmom? And I say this because there's something that I read in your book your grandmom said to you that my mom said to me. And actually, it made me make a really important decision. And that's the fact that all lawyers are liars.
I knew that's where you were going.
Yes, I really wanted to be a lawyer when I was growing up, but this put me off. It literally scared me. So tell us, how was it growing up with your mom, with your grandmom?
Growing up with my grandmother, honestly, I believe is the best gift that I could have received. I believe with all my heart, and the older I get, the more, even though she's now passed on almost 20 years, I am more and more convinced on a daily basis that God chose her to raise me. You know, I know that because of the example that she set for me, and a lot of the woman that I am today is influenced by her lifestyle. So for example, I speak a lot on prayer. I have a program on 3ABN, that's a Christian international TV station, on prayer. I have written 5 books on prayer. The 6th one is now finished editing. It's just on my computer waiting for me to give it time to read through after the editing process, and I will get it out this year. A lot of what I speak on about prayer is influenced by my grandmother's lifestyle because she was a woman of prayer. And I looked at her, Maureen, many times, just the way that she felt so special and important. She would say things like this. She'd be like, I feel as if I'm God's only child. As if,
Wow.
God was just spending so much time with her. And she felt that. And she made her time with God also really important. I remember her dressing up, putting on her powder. Back in the day, they had these big powder puffs, and she'd have that puff there and well dressed and to meet with her God. And I looked at her. I also look at her lifestyle. We grew up in the home where, my grandfather had died. And so she was like the sole winner. She took care of her home with her kids, her grandkids, an extended family home. And even though she had such a meager salary, we never had any lack. In fact, every Friday when I come from school at 12, I had to go out into the community for years to distribute bread to people who were shut in. That's old folks who couldn't go out and stuff, and to other old people every single Friday of my life. And when it was holidays like Christmas, she would cook and our doors would be open so that anybody passing on the streets could get something to eat. There was always abundance. Every time we had to go out, they would make us new outfits because there were machines at home. And so we always had nice outfits and everything. And so I could not understand as a child how a lady who is working at a bakery, barely has money, double tithing her money, by the way.
Wow.
She used to double tithe her money, and we were blessed. And so I knew that there was something special about this woman. And I looked at her and I was jealous. And I'm like, I want that too. I want to feel as if I'm God's only child. And so that is the greatest example that I could have had it growing up. A woman who loved God so much, who had so much faith, and who believed so much in the power of prayer. Even now, what I do is mainly focused on prayer, even though I speak a lot on purpose, but there's always this prayer foundation in it. And a lot of that was influenced by my grandmother.
Wow, wow, wow. That is amazing. She just sounds like an incredible woman. And, when you talked about, in fact, as you're talking about her, I could just see my own mom,
Wow.
because she was just a woman of prayer. And it really has an impact on children when you're brought up by someone that really prays, that truly understands what praying is about. So that is simply incredible. So with the way you've described her and the impact that she had on your life, can you tell us how that then shaped you in terms of decisions that you made, either the courses you read, but how it kind of shaped your life and has really brought you to where you are today?
Okay. First, I will want to, you had asked me about the lawyer thingy that I wanted to be
Aha,
a lawyer.
yeah.
So growing up, I wanted to be a teller at the bank. I wanted to be an air hostess and a lawyer, these three things. So one, I worked at a bank. I was not a teller, even though one day I did help, but I worked at a bank as an admin assistant. I've traveled to 78 countries, hundreds of cities globally. The lawyer part I have not done, and honestly still desire to study law. It never left me. It was always there in me. In fact, when I was working on my PhD, I remember some colleagues saying to me, Nadine, why are you in education? You should be a lawyer, to the point that one of my classes, called organization and law, every time my professor would be teaching that course, she'd always call out to me, Nadine, can you explain this to your colleagues? Can you explain that to your colleagues? And almost like a cycle that was just meant to be, I actually now teach that same class part-time, school organization and law, to master's and PhD students. So the dream that I had never left. As it relates to now my grandmother influencing me, it influenced me. Her influence actually impacted my life in the sense that because I saw the relationship that she had with God, I wanted that relationship too. I wanted to know what it was like to feel like God's only child, to have my personal relationship, not through religion, not through the doctrines and so on. And so I was on a quest very early in life to have that. So very early in life, I would be testing God and I would be testing things out, testing principles out. And so I now began to shape my own relationship with God. And so now when it came to things like going to study, instead of me going to study in Barbados, where I could study for free because I'm a Barbadian citizen, I decided to pray, where do you want me to go? And of course, I went with his leading, same thing, master's program, PhD program, just depending on God to lead me, including me speaking and including me writing and me now coaching women to do the same. All of that came as a result of my prayer life, which is a result of her impact on my life, just seeking the will of God. Because when I was around 18 or 19, that time she had passed away, just around that same age. And I remember desktop computers were now coming into the scenes of the home. And I was working in an office and I used to use the computer to do little cards and bookmarks and stuff. I loved playing around with Publisher at the time. And I remember saying, because I was typing up little documents and so on, I did not want to do it on the job's time. Sometimes I would stay after work to do it, but I'm like, I wish to have my own computer. So I went to the bank and I had read a chapter of a book that says, that in order to know God's will in your life, you need to have no will of your own. And I thought in my young mind, how is that even possible not to have a will of your own? Anyhow, I tried it out. I went to the bank, but right before I got to the loans officer, right outside there, I said, God, I really want that computer, but if you don't want it, I really don't want it. Or whatever way you want it, I'll want it, whatever. So I went in, I passed my job letter, I passed my pay slip, and then the man put stuff in there. Back in the day, it was just codes appearing on the screen. And he said to me, you qualify on paper, but on like in the system, you don't. And under my breath, I said, okay, I guess God doesn't want it. I was not disappointed, but he looked at me and he said, but I can speak to my supervisor and stuff. I was like, no, thank you so much for your time and stuff. I'm saying to myself, I guess God doesn't want this. I left that bank, went outside, sunny, bright day, and I was like, yes, because I tested it. I really want it. I really don't want it. Whatever you want, I want. And 2 weeks later, a couple that I would assist in typing legal documents came to my office and said to me, so Nadine, how did things go? Did you get your computer? And I said to them, no, I didn't get it. They say I didn't qualify. And right there, they said, you know what, since you help us out so much, we want to give you half of the money, 50% of the money that you need, whatever the cost of the computer is, we'll give it to you. That is when I got addicted to just seeking the will of God. And that is what led me my entire life into how I go about doing things, including what I focus on business-wise.
Wow, Nadine, that is just powerful. And I think for anyone, as a Christian in particular, just being able to understand that seeking God's will. And I love what you said, to know God's will is having no will of your own. I just love that, because a lot of times we have our own agendas about what we want. But when in fact, there's something that I used to say growing up that my mom really taught me. It's letting go, let go and let God. And it's truly just allowing God take over completely. I love that. And there's somewhere else, in fact, in the book, you talked a lot about this. When you heard the voice of God that led you when you were going to get, I think it was renting an apartment, and that talking about the yellow house. Honestly, if you really need to go and read this book. It's just amazing. The stories of how God answered you, how you sought his voice and he led you through. So I'm going to bring us to one question before I come into purpose is, why did you study education? Because you went from working in the bank to then going into education. Why was that?
Yes. So the first thing is that while I'm growing up, even though I had a good job at the bank, all of my friends at the time were going off to school, everybody's going to college. Some of my friends came back from college and I was at home working 9 years. And I remember one specific Sunday morning, waking up, and in my head, I'm just hearing, like something is playing in your head over and over again. I'm hearing the name of a university in Trinidad, Caribbean Union College. It was just playing in my head over and over again. And I recognized that this was God leading. And I called a lady who I call Auntie Linda, who's like a mother to me. And I said, Auntie Linda, I believe God wants me to go. And I told her, and she began to scream on the phone. And she's like, thank you, God, you answered my prayer. And so I took it as God leading me there. The thing is, I had applied the year before, God accepted, got my student ID and everything, but I didn't have the funds to go. At the time, honestly speaking, if I had the faith that I had at that point, I would have been in school and out. But I had to develop that faith over time. So by now, even though I didn't have everything in place, I was able to now leave and just go to school. So I went there. That's how I ended up doing the psychology degree and so on. As it relates to the PhD in education, again, that's a whole other story of the leading of God. Because in 2010, I was attending a conference here in Atlanta, and that final morning, I was not feeling too well, and I'm in my bed and I'm feeling bothered that I need to go to the main hall. And I'm there laying down, I'm thinking I'm not going anywhere. I'm just trying to stay warm. And I just felt like I needed to go. You need to go. And I keep getting that nudging. So I got up from the hotel, walked about half a mile to the place, that big Congress hall, walked straight down, was going across and walked straight out just to say, okay, Lord, I came, now what? Which is literally what happened to me when he sent me to study in Asia. I got on the airport and I just began to cry immediately. And I'm like, I'm here now, what? It's like I'm being compelled by him just to do what I had to do, what it is I had to do. Same experience happened to me going to Lagos recently. I didn't want to go. And it's like he was pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. And I arrived and I tell him, okay, I'm here now. What am I doing here? So it's just like, just going where he's leading. And the truth is, Maureen, if we want God to lead us, we have to understand that he will lead us in little things, and then we'll get the bigger tests. Some of us, if we don't pass this little test where he's leading in these little ways, and so that sets us up for the major moves that he would want us to make, right? And so now here I am in this place, and I'm passing, and I see this university there. Of all of them, I stopped. And I asked, do you have a PhD in education? Do you have a PhD in theology? They said yes. I signed up. The thing is, I had been praying already because I didn't want to do a PhD. He led me there. I tried to fill out the form. When I finished, everything disappeared. The lady came back. She assisted me. And I wasn't taking anything on that trip because I was heading to a cruise right after, right? And so that day, I took from her a keyring and a little sticky note and a small calendar. And so I left, I finished that conference, went on a cruise, went back to Trinidad. And one Friday, I was heading to the president's office, and the Spirit impressed me to take that little pad. I had so many notepads because I had done recruitment for the institution, and I had from all different universities all over the world. But I went with that one, and I'm speaking to the president, and he said, have you considered the Philippines? And I'm like, huh? He's like, there's a really good institution there. It's owned by the General Conference. They have renowned world professors, etc. But I don't remember the name. Maureen, you won't believe the pad that the Holy Spirit impressed me to take. All I did was take it out. There was no name. There was only a logo. And I said, is that
Wow.
it? And he said, yes, that's the one. No name, no inscriptions, just the logo. So I got confirmation. When I teach on prayer and in my books, I talk about the idea that prayer is about confirmation. So I got it that this is what he wanted me to do. This is where he wanted me to go. So it wasn't an area I chose, including my doctoral research focus. I didn't choose that area. From undergrad, I was studying special ed was my focus. I was in the honors program in undergrad. My research thesis for undergrad in the honors program was on the need for speech language pathologists in St. Lucia. My master's, I focused heavily on, these special ed needs, etc. Again, on speech pathology. And I'm thinking in my PhD, my research focus was going to be on that same area. So all of my papers, every class was focused because I already had research from undergrad, then through master's, now PhD. And all of a sudden, the person who was my advisor, Upton, left, had no meeting, anything with me, and I was left like open. And now left open, he was able to lead me, and he led me to women in top leadership. So it was not even my choice. So yeah.
Wow, that is just amazing. There's this scripture that says the path of the righteous is ordered by God, and that is so true. In terms of prayer, because you talk a lot about prayer, for people listening, what is the best way to pray to hear God's voice, and also how to know that that's God's voice? Just quickly, because I know you talk a lot about,
and I have so many books on it. I have an online prayer class and everything. So, there's a lot of depth, but the basics of it is that, number one, you cannot take any shortcuts to having an effective prayer life, because prayer is building a relationship with God, because prayer is how we communicate with God. Communication is how we build relationships with each other, and communication is also how we build relationship with God. And our way of communicating is through prayer. The problem is that many of us, we've been talking to God, and that is our biggest problem, because a conversation suggests that there are two people talking and not just one. And so most of us are having monologues instead of having a dialogue. So we've been talking to ourselves and saying we're talking to God, because he does not have any opportunity in the conversation to tell us anything. And so that is a foundational principle in the first book on prayer. I deal with the principles, foundational principles of prayer, because most of us take it for granted that because we can say the right words, because we can repeat the prayers people taught us, that we're praying, not recognizing that it is actually a conversation with God and not a monologue. And so if we just begin to change that and begin to practice listening the same way we practice listening when we have to learn how to listen when other people are speaking in a conversation, it's the same. So I'll give that one foundational principle as one of the ways to shift things, recognizing that it's a conversation, a two-way conversation, a dialogue, not a monologue. So it means we need to begin to practice silence. When we've spoken, begin to practice silence, so that we can begin to know the voice of God. It will be challenging at first, because our heads are so filled with noise. You have to quiet the noise in your mouth, you shut up, but then there's so much happening in your head that's not shutting up. And so we have to practice getting all of these things out, practicing silencing the mind, so that we can now begin to hear and discern that voice, because there are many voices out there. And so it takes practice, but it's doable. And if anybody's interested in the prayer series, I can send you details that you can share, because they can get their prayer books as well. Because when you change the way you pray, then you're changing your life.
Yeah.
And the only way to discover purpose, if you're truly intentional about living out the reason why you're here in the world, you will need to change the way you pray. Because otherwise you will be figuring things out on your own. You will be doing things maybe that you like, but it may not necessarily be your purpose. But your prayer life is going to help to shift the compass for you, so that you can find yourself in the center of what you are here to do, the will of God for your life, your divine purpose. And he will also give you strategy to live it out and to be successful in it. Because I tell my clients all the time, prayer is my number one business strategy. That is where I get all of what I need to be doing from him. And that's the best strategies that I can ever get. So I hire coaches, I do stuff to help me. But ultimately, the guidance that I need is from God to be able to know what to do, how to do it, when to do it.
Oh, wow. A lot. You dropped a lot for us there. That is so cool. That is so cool. You did actually take us into purpose.
Mhm.
And I don't know if we're going to be able to answer this question, but I think it's something I would love to come back and do another podcast with you. And it's really talking about prayer and meditation, really linking, especially when we talk about that, being quiet and listening to God, so that we can actually, it's not just us, it's not the monologue. So it's something I really want to, we might be able to talk about it, but if not, it's something I really want us to come back to. But you did touch on purpose, really bringing us to purpose. How do you define purpose, and why is it important to know?
Yes, so purpose is really any single one of us living in divine alignment with what we're meant to do. It's us being totally connected to the reason why we were brought here in the world. So every single one of us were brought here on a divine assignment. There is something that we're meant to do that nobody else can do the way that we can do it, because it's the assignment that we came here to fulfill. Most of us are not intentional about knowing what that is, because we've not been wired to seek purpose. When I was growing up, everybody would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's almost like you can choose, the same way I was trying to choose, I want to do law, right? You can choose what you want to be, because we see all of these careers being exposed to us, and the one that looks most appealing, or the one that looks like it can make you the most money, and you could choose. We're not wired to believe that I am here to do something amazing. And from a child, I need to begin to seek out, what am I here to do in the world? What change am I here to make? How am I meant to influence or impact lives or inspire lives? It's almost like we're led to choose our own path. And most of us end up doing that and still feel unfulfilled. Most of us do it. We could make the most money. The clients I work with, great, they have great jobs. All of them are highly educated women. They're making the money. Some of them are already having impact on everything. But there is this sense of a lack of fulfillment and a lack of peace. Like, I'm doing all of this, but yet in the night, my mind is not feeling at ease. I don't feel as if I'm there. It's because purpose is calling. I don't know if you realize how I personify purpose, especially in the prologue about, purpose being
your
there with
twin.
us. Yes, being there. And so purpose is always calling us out. And we know that it's calling us out when we feel that I'm meant to do more. I may not know what it is, but I know this is not it. It doesn't matter how much money I make. It doesn't matter what I do, how much I do this. Something is missing. And that's because you're not yet aligned with why you're here, what that divine purpose is. Once that comes, there is this peace. I get to see it in my class all the time, this peace that comes. And that's when you also get real crazy. Your faith is just like mad. Because you like, this is it, and I will do whatever it takes to do what I have to do, because this is it. Even though it means I have to leave my job. Even means that I get a downgrade according to it. It doesn't matter what happens. This is it. I feel finally that I'm doing what I'm meant to do, and I'm where I need to be. And this is it for me. And so the importance of purpose is that sense of peace, that sense of I am doing what it is I'm meant to do. And the irony is, I say it, and I think I put it in the book as well, is that purpose is its own motivation and its own inspiration. When you're operating in your divine purpose, you actually have less to do to be prepared to do what you need to do, because you already have everything from already inside. It's almost like it's innate for you. That's why we connect with God, as etc. For him to download strategy, because he knew us before we were born. He said, I set you apart for that thing. And so now, because you knew me and you know what you set me apart for, I am coming to you for strategy, divine strategy to execute that particular thing.
Gosh, that is a lot. And you mentioned something that I think is just so powerful, and it's the fulfillment that you get when you discover purpose, and how unfulfilled you are. when you don't have purpose.
Mhm.
So, that is really, really important. No, thank you so much. Now we're coming to an end. And then there's a lot that we can talk about relating to this topic. But one thing that I think a few questions that you mentioned in the book, can you just go mention those three? And then we will just round up when it comes to discovering purpose. I think the first one you said is, who am I? And then you go from there. Yeah.
Yes. So the thing is, when I lead women on that path to purpose, that path to uncovering purpose, the first thing is addressing first your beliefs about purpose. Because if you do not believe that you were brought here into the world for a reason, if you do not believe that you were brought here into the world to do something specific, you will never be looking for it.
Mm.
So there must first be this belief that I am here to do something amazing and I need to know what that is, because we only find what we're looking for. So if I don't know there is something out there, then I will not know that I'm looking for that something. Now, the three fundamental questions. So the first thing is, it's really a background of the person seeking purpose. It's a background of that person recognizing I need to be on a journey. Now, when we're on that journey, we ask ourselves some fundamental questions, really basic philosophical questions, but really important to the fulfillment of purpose, which is, who am I? Because if I believe, if my belief about who I am, it's not really grounded in something healthy, in a healthy view of myself, in a healthy view of who I was created to be, then again, I will not be seeking out purpose. Because if I fundamentally don't understand who I am, if I have these negative views of me and I think of myself in a very negative way and all that stuff, I won't be thinking that I'm here to do something amazing. I will just be looking for something to do, getting by, and exiting the world and a sad soul. We ask ourselves a second question: why am I here? Why am I here? I'm here for something specific. Goes back to background. I'm here for something specific. I'm here to do something amazing. I need to know what that is. And the third question, what am I supposed to do, linked to the second one, is how am I executing that purpose? Because the thing is, whatever it is you've been brought here to do. So as a Christian, for example, who am I is really rooted in me being a child of the King. And that's so generic. So I always ask women to go deeper than I'm a child of the King. Go deeper. Who am I? Take off all of the roles that you play, because most times when I ask women, who are you? I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a this, I'm a that.
Yeah.
I'm like, take away all these roles and answer about who you are. Describe yourself. I said to them, if you met yourself for the first time, what would you say to you about you? Impress me. Tell me about you. Go deep. And so we want to be able to face that, who am I? Because that is where we're faced with our own issues. It brings us to our indoctrinations and our fears and our mindset about ourselves. So then we're able to be making the change and the shifts and stuff like that. When that is done, we look at things like, why am I here? I'm here to do something amazing. Okay, so I need to search for it. So what am I supposed to do? When I find out why I'm here, I'm supposed to do something with it, because your delivery of your purpose will look different probably to somebody else's. And Absolutely. So while we learn from anybody else, or from every and anybody else, the way that we deliver purpose to the world will be guided by our midwife. Sometimes I call myself a midwife to my clients, but ultimately it's really about God and how he leads and who he probably leads you to help you to get the help. But it is something that we have to be very intentional about, because purpose is always there, but we're so accustomed of the frills of life, our education, our background, our experience, our service, our this, our that it will not just come and show up. Although when we find it, we'll realize it was there all along, because all of the dots are now connected. Oh, now I see why. And that's why I want to just say to any woman listening is that everything that you have been through in your life, don't think it's going to go to waste, because maybe even now as we're speaking, you're probably feeling like, I kind of feel what I was supposed to be doing. And one of the questions, because I studied, when I did Ed Psych as my master's, I also did a training called Brief Solution Focused Counseling. And one of the questions that I took from that model that I now use when I do discovery calls is the miracle question, helping women to now visualize, if a miracle happened to me when I went to sleep tonight and I wake up to my miracle, what does that miracle look like? That's one of the questions that really helps me to get them there, apart from a bunch of other questions that I would have had. And I believe the final chapter, chapter 21, I almost made it like a worksheet where women can go through and fill out to really help to bring them to that place of what that divine purpose might be. And then, of course, the next step would be about how do I execute what it is I'm meant to do.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So the book is called The Pursuit of Purpose. And you can find it exactly. That's if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the video and see the book. You can find, I know you can find it on Amazon and any other place where people can go get the book.
For the autograph hard copies, which most people may want, I just shipped out about 50 something this morning. The autograph hard copy, we could send the link, share the link with you so you can share them where they can order it. So if you order it on Amazon, you will get a paperback copy. But if you order the autographed hard copy from us, I will be sending it to you with a lovely note, a bookmark in a lovely box, give you the purpose experience. And so I'm excited because I know that this book will transform so many lives, because the feedback has been amazing.
No, it definitely will. And I'm getting my own signed copy that coming through soon. So do that. I'm going to put all the links in the description. And I like the way you described the understanding purpose and what you need is so true, especially that with the whole concept of belief, because that is what is wired into our subconscious brain. And for us to really understand who we truly are, we've got to go really deep. But to get there, we've got to start, identifying all the limiting and wrong wiring that has already occurred, so that we can remove that and really get to that's what God has already put there for us from the beginning. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nadine. It's really been a joy really speaking to you. Just quickly, can you just tell people how you work with, so if they want to work with you, what does that look like? And I'm going to put all the links in the description, but just describe it. I know you do coaching, you do classes. So if you could just tell us quickly.
Yes, thank you so much, Maureen, also for this opportunity even to share that information. So I currently work with women in live groups. For example, I have 2 group coaching programs. One of them is called the Speaker Mentorship Group Program, where I work with women to build their speaking platforms. So I believe 2021, I worked with 20 of them. I'm 18 in the group, 2 one-on-one, but I work with groups. This year I've done 2 cohorts. I'm in the 2nd cohort right now, helping women build their speaking platforms. These are women who have stories to tell, who have messages that they didn't even know was there, and just bring that out so that they can actually become visible, that they can become credible on their topics. And I also work with women to write their books. We're getting ready to start a new cohort in our book program soon, I believe sometime next month, October. And so it's really helping women do that. In addition to that, I have a certified prayer counselor class that anybody can do the class. We have it there. They do it on their own time. And I tell you, this again is what shifts the pole for women in any of my programs. Also have Runway to Soar program, which really helps with women to deal with themselves, dealing with the who am I, the first module, dealing with issues of fears, of mindset, and anything else that'll prevent them from getting to where they want to. And the latter part deals with more business focused things like, knowing how to stand out in the marketplace that's actually crowded, knowing how to soar on social media, Media. So it's a basic business building program, but they also have access to the prayer class. And so in all of my programs, people also have access to the prayer class as well, because again, it's foundation to where you're going to go. And so I work with women in those capacities as a coach in speaking and in writing their books, and also have these other programs that they can get. Have other books, the books on prayer and so on. And also this one here, The Pursuit of Purpose, which we were talking about today. And they can visit my website, nadinecollins.com. That's www.nadinecollins.com. And if anybody, interested in, building their speaking platforms or writing their books and so on, they can reach out to me at nadine@nadinecollins.com, or just find me on social media. I'm everywhere except Twitter. And so you can find me.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll put all the links in the description so that people can reach out to you. And it's been a great pleasure having you on this podcast, Nadine. What I'll say is you are one busy lady. You really are. And I'll just honestly, God is your strength. Keep soaring. You are doing amazing work. And it's just such a pleasure meeting you. I'm looking forward to receiving my signed copy of your book. It's because I've read it. I've got it on Kindle and I've read it, and it's just amazing book. So thank you once again. Thank you for coming on to Lead to Excel podcast.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. I pray much blessings upon your work, that you continue to transform lives as you lead people to excel.
Thank you. Thanks so much.